The space station called Confluence floated in the darkness between three star systems. It was a massive structure, built over 2,000 years by many different species. Millions of aliens lived there, traded there, and made deals that shaped the future of entire planets. The station was so large that it had its own weather systems inside. Clouds formed near the ceiling of the great halls, and sometimes it rained on the market districts. Una walked through the crowded corridors every morning, and every morning she felt small. This was not just a feeling. It was a fact. She stood at 160 centimeters tall, which was average for a human woman. But the aliens around her were not human. The Valkyrie towered at nearly 3 meters, their bodies made of something like living crystal that glowed from within. The Keth were shorter but wider, with 4 arms and skin like rough stone. Even the Minari, who were considered small by galactic standards, stood a full head taller than most humans. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 30 years ago. In a civilization that measured history in tens of thousands of years, 30 years was nothing. Humans were the new species, the young ones, the children who had just learned to walk among giants. Una worked as a junior translator for the Terran diplomatic corps. Her job was simple. She listened to aliens speak, and she translated their words for human diplomats. She also translated human words for the aliens. It was not an important job. At least, that was what everyone believed. Her office was a small room on level 47 of the diplomatic quarter. She shared it with 3 other translators, all human. Her desk was the one in the corner, next to a window that looked out at the stars. She liked that window. When the work became too heavy, she would look at those distant lights and remind herself why she was here. Her colleague Taiho sat at the desk next to hers. He was a few years older than her, with tired eyes and a quick smile. He had been a translator for 5 years, and he had taught her many things when she first arrived. "Another reception tonight," Taiho said, reading from his tablet. "The Valkyrie are hosting. Ambassador Quan wants full translation coverage." Una felt her stomach tighten. She did not show it on her face. "I will be there." "You do not have to go," Taiho said. He looked at her with concern. "I can cover for you. Tell them you are sick." "No, I will go." Taiho shook his head. He knew why she always went to these events, even though they were painful for her. He just did not understand it. The truth was that Una had a secret. She had kept it for 3 years, ever since she arrived on Confluence. Not even Taiho knew. Not even Ambassador Quan knew the full extent of it. Una was not just a translator. She was something much rarer, something that humanity had only begun to understand. She was a namer. The reception hall of the Valkyrie embassy was beautiful and cold. The walls were made of crystal that sang softly when the air moved. The floor was polished so smooth that it reflected the lights above like a dark mirror. Hundreds of aliens filled the space, talking, laughing, making the deals that kept the galaxy running. Una stood near the back wall, wearing her simple translator's uniform. It was gray, without decoration. Translators were supposed to be invisible, present but not noticed. She held a small device that recorded conversations and helped her with difficult words. She did not really need it anymore, but carrying it made her look like what she was supposed to be. The Valkyrie ambassador entered the hall, and everyone turned to look. His name was Dromoth, and he was impressive even by Valkyrie standards. He stood over 3 meters tall, and his crystalline body blazed with inner light. When he spoke, his voice filled the room like thunder rolling across mountains. He had been ambassador for over 200 years, which meant he had been in this job since before humans had electricity. Dromoth did not like humans. He had made this very clear many times, in many ways. "Ah," he said, his glowing eyes finding Una across the crowded room. "The Whisper is here." This was his name for her. The whisper. He thought it was funny because humans spoke so softly compared to Velthari. Every time he said it, his followers laughed. They were laughing now. Una lowered her head slightly. She did not respond. Dromoth walked toward her, the crowd parting before him like water around a great ship. He stopped 2 meters away and looked down at her with something that might have been amusement or contempt. It was hard to tell with Velthari faces. "Tell me, little whisper," he said. "Why do the Terrans keep sending you to these events? Do they think your presence honors us? Or are you simply the only one they can spare?" "I am here to translate, Ambassador," Una said. Her voice was calm and quiet. "If you need translation services, I am available." "Translation," Dromoth repeated, making the word sound like an insult. "Yes, that is all your kind is good for, is it not?" Listening and repeating, like trained animals. More laughter from the Velthari around him. Una said nothing. She kept her eyes down, her face empty. "Look at you," Dromoth continued. "So small. So fragile. I have heard that humans break easily. Is this true? If I touched you, would you shatter? I would prefer that you did not test this theory, Ambassador." This made him laugh, a booming sound that shook the crystal walls. "It speaks with courage. How delightful. Perhaps the Terrans are not entirely without spirit." He turned to address the room, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "My friends, look at this creature. This is what the Terran government sends to represent their species. Their smallest, their weakest, their most forgettable. And they wonder why we do not take them seriously." He looked back at Una. "You will tell your ambassador something for me, little whisper. Tell her that the Velthari will never support human membership on the council. Not in 30 years. Not in 300. Not in 3,000. Humans are children, and children do not sit at the table of adults. Do you understand?" "I understand," Una said. "Good. Now go stand in your corner and be silent. That is what you do best." He walked away, his followers trailing behind him like planets orbiting a star. The other aliens in the room returned to their conversations, already forgetting the small human woman standing alone near the back wall. But Una was not standing silently, she was listening. Her ears caught every word Drama spoke as he moved through the crowd. Her mind recorded the tones, the frequencies, the subtle vibrations that lay beneath his language. She noted which sounds he emphasized, which syllables he avoided, which ancient words slipped into his speech without his knowledge. She had been doing this for 3 years. Every reception, every meeting, every public speech. She collected pieces of a puzzle that Dromoth did not know existed. Taiho found her an hour later, still standing in the same spot. "I saw what happened," he said, his voice tight with anger. "I wanted to say something, but that would have made things worse," Una finished for him. "I know. How can you stand it? How can you let him treat you like that?" Una finally looked up. There was something in her eyes that Taiho had never seen before. It was not pain or humiliation. It was patience. The patience of someone who was waiting for something that others could not see. "Because I am listening," she said. "And one day, when I have heard enough, I will speak. And when I speak, he will be the one who listens." Taiho did not understand. He thought she was just being brave, just saying words to make herself feel better. He put his hand on her shoulder in sympathy and walked, away to get her something to drink. Una turned back to watch Dromoth across the room. He was laughing again, surrounded by admirers, confident in his power. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did in her small room that night. Una sat before her computer and added the new data to her collection. The waveforms scrolled across her screen, each one representing a piece of Dromoth's speech. She had thousands of samples now, from hundreds of different conversations. somewhere in all that data was the thing she was looking for. The name. The true name of the Velthri species, hidden in the frequencies of their language like a fossil buried in stone. Every species had one. A sound that was more than a sound. A vibration that connected to the deepest part of their consciousness, to the memories they had forgotten, to the truth of what they really were. The Velthri had forgotten their name 10,000 years ago. They thought it was a myth, an old story with no power. They were wrong. Una was going to find it. And when she did, the ambassador who called her Whisper would learn what it meant when a human raised her voice. She worked until dawn, as she always did. Then she slept for a few hours, ate a small breakfast, and went back to her desk in the translation office. Taiho was already there. He looked up when she entered. "You look tired," he said. "I am fine. There is another reception next week. You know that, right? The pre-summit gathering. Dromoth will be there." Una sat down at her desk and smiled. "Good," she said. "I was hoping he would be." Una lived in a small room on level 32 of the residential quarter. It was not much to look at. A bed in one corner, a desk in another, a tiny kitchen area with a food processor that made the same 5 meals over and over. The window was small and faced away from the stars, showing only the gray metal wall of the next building. But what filled the room told a different story. Data crystals were everywhere. They covered her desk, lined her shelves, and filled boxes stacked against the walls. Each crystal contained thousands of hours of audio recordings. Velthri speeches, Velthri ceremonies, Velthri conversations captured at diplomatic events and public markets, in the great halls where they sang their ancient songs. Una had collected all of it herself, piece by piece, over 3 years. No one had helped her. No one even knew what she was doing. On her desk sat equipment that had cost her a full year of salary. Audio analyzers that could detect frequencies beyond normal hearing. Pattern recognition software designed for xenolinguistics. A custom-built speaker system that could produce sounds no human throat could make. She had built this laboratory in secret, working every night after her regular job ended. She ate cheap food and wore old clothes so she could afford better equipment. She had not taken a vacation in 3 years. She had not visited her family back on Earth in even longer. All of this was for one purpose: finding the name. 10 years ago, a dying alien had changed everything humanity knew about language. His name was Kethos, and he was the last of his species. The others had been wiped out in a war so long ago that even their enemies had forgotten them. Kethos had spent his final years on Earth, living in a small house in Korea, studying humans with the same fascination that humans studied alien species. He had noticed something strange about human brains, something different from every other species he had encountered in his long life. Humans could hear things that others could not. Not sounds. Exactly. Frequencies. Patterns hidden beneath the surface of language. Buried so deep that most species had evolved past the ability to detect them. But human neural architecture still carried the ancient wiring. That made perception possible. Kethos had called it the gift. He had spent his last months teaching a small group of human scientists everything he knew about it. The names, the primal frequencies, the vibrational signatures that every sentient species unconsciously produced when they spoke. Then he had died, and the scientists had been left with more questions than answers. They had searched for humans who carried the gift most strongly, the ability to not just hear the frequencies, but to understand them, decode them, and most importantly, reproduce them. Out of 8 billion humans, they had found 12. Una was one of them. The Terran government had recruited her 5 years ago, when she was still a graduate student studying alien linguistics. They had explained what she was, what she could do, and what they needed from her. learn the names. That was her mission. Study the major species of the galactic community and discover their primal frequencies. Give humanity a tool that could change everything. God, it was not a weapon, they had told her. It was understanding. It was connection. It was the ability to speak to other species in the deepest way possible. But Yuna knew that understanding could be the most powerful weapon of all. She had started with the Velthari because they were the ones who opposed humanity most strongly. They blocked every attempt at human advancement in the Council. They mocked human diplomats. They treated humanity like insects that had wandered into their home. If Yuna could find their name, everything would change. The problem was the Velthari were difficult. Their crystalline biology created interference patterns that scrambled the frequencies she was trying to isolate. Every time she thought she had found something, it slipped away into noise. But tonight felt different. She had gathered new samples at the last reception, including several minutes of Dramath speaking in what he thought was a private conversation. The ambassador had not known that Yuna's recording device could capture sounds from across the room. He had been talking to another Velthari about old memories, old stories, things from his childhood thousands of years ago. Old things were important. The older the speech, the closer it came to the original patterns. Modern language was layered with evolution and change, but childhood memories carried echoes of something more primal. Yuna fed the new samples into her analyzer and started the pattern-matching routine. Then she waited, watching the waveforms dance across her screen. 3 hours passed. Then 4. She drank cold tea and ate protein bars without tasting them. Her eyes burned, but she did not look away from the screen. Then she saw it. Pattern emerged from the noise like a shape rising from deep water. It was faint at first, just a flicker of regularity in the chaos of data. But as she refined her filters, it grew stronger. A frequency. A specific vibration that repeated throughout every Velthari recording she had. It was not a word or a sound that any Velthari would recognize. It was beneath their language, woven into the fabric of their speech so deeply that they could not hear it themselves. Yuna's hands trembled as she isolated the pattern. She ran it through her analysis software, checking it against the theoretical models that Kathos had left behind. It matched. She had found the Velthari name. For a long moment, she just sat there, staring at the waveform on her screen. 3 years of work. 3 years of mockery and humiliation. 3 years of collecting data one piece at a time while Dramath and his people laughed at her. And now she held their deepest secret in her hands. The name was not just a sound. When she looked at its structure, she could see the history it contained. The pattern carried information, memories encoded in vibration. This was what made names so powerful. They did not just identify a species. They reminded that species of everything they had forgotten about themselves. Yuna began to decode what the Velthari name contained. What she found made her sit back in a chair, her face pale. The Velthari told a story about their past. They called it the Great Ascension. According to their history, their species had once been creatures of flesh and blood, like most species in the galaxy. But they had evolved beyond that limitation. They had transformed themselves into beings of living crystal. Perfect and eternal. It was a story of progress, of achievement, of rising above the limitations of biology. It was also a lie. The name told a different story. The Velthari had not evolved naturally. They had engineered their transformation, yes, but not all of them. Only a small portion of their population had been able to adapt to the crystalline form. The rest, the ones whose bodies rejected the change, had been declared impure. They had been eliminated. Millions of Velthari had died so that the survivors could become what they were today. The Great Ascension was not evolution. It was genocide. The modern Velthari had buried this truth so deeply that they had forgotten it entirely. 10,000 years of deliberate forgetting had erased it from their history. But the name remembered. The primal frequency that connected all Valkyrie. Consciousness still carried the memory of what they had done. If Una spoke the name, every Valkyrie who heard it would remember. She understood now why Kethos had said that names were dangerous. This was not a tool for making friends. This was a key to a door that the Valkyrie had sealed shut and painted over and convinced themselves did not exist. She could destroy them with this. Not physically, but psychologically. She could shatter their image of themselves, force them to confront a crime that their entire civilization was built on top of. Or she could do nothing. She could keep the name secret and let the Valkyrie continue as they were, proud and ignorant and cruel. Una thought about Dromoth calling her a whisper. She thought about all the human diplomats who had been dismissed and mocked. She thought about the way the Valkyrie voted against humanity again and again, keeping them from having any real voice in galactic affairs. But she also thought about what it would mean to use this weapon. The Valkyrie were not all like Dromoth. Many of them were ordinary people who had nothing to do with their species' ancient crimes. Did they deserve to have their world shattered because their ancestors had done something terrible? She did not know the answer. Not yet. She saved her work and turned off her equipment. Dawn was coming, light beginning to creep through her small window. She had not slept at all. Taeho found her at the translation office 3 hours later, sitting at her desk with a cup of cold coffee in her hands. "You look terrible," he said. "Did you sleep?" "No. Una, you need to take care of yourself. Whatever you are working on, it is not worth destroying your health." She looked at him, and something in her expression made him stop talking. "I found it," she said. "What I have been looking for. I finally found it." "Found what?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Everything. I found everything." Taeho did not understand. He sat down at his desk and started his morning routine, shaking his head at his strange colleague. But Una just kept staring at her cold coffee, thinking about the weight of what she now carried. The Galactic Summit was in 3 days. The vote on Humanity's Council membership would happen there. Dromoth had already promised to block it, as he had blocked it at every summit for the past 30 years. Una could change that. She could speak the name and watch the Valkyrie crumble. She could give humanity the victory. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council could hold 10,000 beings. It was shaped like a bowl, with rows of seats rising up from a central stage in every direction. The ceiling was transparent, showing the endless stars beyond. Lights floated in the air, programmed to illuminate whoever was speaking. Today, every seat was filled. The summit happened once every 10 standard years. Representatives from all 217 member species came to discuss matters that affected the entire galaxy. Trade agreements, border disputes, resource sharing, and most importantly, membership. Humanity had been trying to become a full member of the Council for 30 years. They had been rejected at every summit. Today would be their 4th attempt. Una sat in the Terran delegation section, wearing her translator's uniform. Around her sat the other human representatives, including Ambassador Quan Jie, who would deliver humanity's formal petition. They all looked nervous. They all knew how this would probably end. Dromoth sat across the hall with the Valkyrie delegation. His crystalline body blazed with light, brighter than usual. He was enjoying this. Una could tell by the way he held himself, by the small movements of his hands. He knew he was going to win. She had not told anyone what she had discovered. Not Taeho, not Ambassador Quan. She had spent the last 3 days thinking, barely sleeping, trying to decide what to do. The Speaker of the Council, an ancient being from a species so old that no one remembered their original name, called the assembly to order. "We gather today to address matters of galactic importance," the speaker said. their voice translated into 100 languages simultaneously. The first item on our agenda is the petition of the Terran species for full membership in this council. A murmur ran through the assembly. Everyone knew this petition would fail. It had become almost a tradition, watching the humans try and fail while the Velthari crushed their hopes. The representative from the Velthari Dominion has requested to speak first, the speaker said. Ambassador Dromuth, you have the floor. Dromuth rose from his seat and walked to the central stage. The lights gathered around him, making his crystal body shine like a star. He looked magnificent. He looked powerful. He looked like someone who had never lost anything in his very long life. Distinguished representatives, he began, his voice filling the hall. We gather once again to consider whether the humans should be granted full membership in our council. And once again, I must speak against this proposal. He paused, letting his words settle. The humans ask for equality. But what have they done to earn it? They have been part of our community for 30 years. In galactic terms, this is nothing. A heartbeat. A blink of an eye. They have contributed nothing of significance. Their technology is primitive. Their military is weak. Their lifespans are so short that by the time one of them learns something useful, they die and must be replaced. Some members of the assembly laughed. The Velthari delegation laughed loudest. They are children, Dromuth continued. Ambitious children, perhaps. Curious children. But children, nonetheless. And children do not make decisions that affect the fate of civilizations. Children do not sit at the table of adults. He turned and pointed at the Terran delegation. Look at them. The Terran government sends us their representatives, and what do we see? Small creatures. Fragile creatures. They speak softly because their bodies cannot produce proper sound. They hide behind translators because their minds cannot process proper thought. They ask for power that they do not understand and could not handle. Dromuth walked across the stage, his voice rising. I have watched humanity for 30 years. I have seen nothing that suggests they are ready for this responsibility. They fight among themselves. They destroy their own planet. They cannot even agree on basic facts about their own history. How can we trust them with influence over galactic affairs? He stopped and faced the assembly directly. The Velthari Dominion votes no. We recommend that all rational species do the same. Let the humans wait another 30 years. Let them prove themselves. Let them earn what they ask for, instead of begging for it. He walked back to his seat, and the Velthari delegation erupted in applause. Other species joined them, the sound echoing through the great hall. The speaker waited for silence, then said, "The Terran delegation may now respond. Ambassador Quan, you have the floor." Ambassador Quan started to rise, but Yuna touched her arm. "Let me," Yuna said quietly. Quan looked at her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Quan said, "Are you certain?" Yes. Quan had known about Yuna's work for 3 years. She had authorized it secretly, giving Yuna access to diplomatic events and recordings. She did not know exactly what Yuna had found, but she trusted her. "Go," Quan said. Yuna stood up. The lights shifted toward her, illuminating her small form. Laughter scattered through the assembly. The weakest human, they were thinking. The whisper. This should be entertaining. She walked to the central stage, her footsteps silent on the polished floor. She looked up at the thousands of faces watching her. She felt their contempt, their amusement, their certainty that she had nothing important to say. She thought about what she was about to do. She had decided, somewhere in those sleepless nights, not because she wanted revenge against Dromuth, not because she wanted to humiliate the Velthari, but because she believed in something that was bigger than her own feelings. The truth mattered. Lies, even comfortable lies, poisoned everything they touched. The Velthari had built their civilization on a lie, and that lie had made them cruel. It had made them believe they were better than everyone else. It had made them mock and dismiss species that they considered beneath them. Una was not going to destroy the Velthari. She was going to give them a chance to become something better. She opened her mouth to speak, and her quiet voice somehow filled the entire hall. "Ambassador Dromoth calls us children," she said. "He says we have contributed nothing. He says we are weak. But I wonder if the ambassador understands what weakness really means." She turned to look at him directly. "You mock us because we are small, because we live briefly, because we arrived late to the stars. But you have forgotten something important about the young Ambassador Dromoth." She paused. "We still remember how to listen." Dromoth's expression flickered. Something about her tone had changed. Something about her presence had shifted. She no longer looked like a frightened translator standing before giants. She looked like something else entirely. "Your species is very old," Una continued. "You have been part of this council for 40,000 years. You have built great things. You have conquered many challenges. But somewhere along the way, you forgot something. You forgot the sound of your own voice." She walked across the stage, not looking at Dromoth anymore, but at the assembly as a whole. Every species in this room has a secret they have forgotten. A truth buried so deep that you do not even know it exists. Humans have a gift that allows us to hear these secrets. We can listen to the frequencies beneath your words, the patterns hidden in your speech. We can find the things you have lost. Silence in the hall. No one was laughing now. For 3 years, I have been listening to the Velthari. I have recorded thousands of hours of their speech. I have analyzed every pattern, every frequency, every hidden vibration. And I have found what they buried. She turned back to Dromoth. "I have found your name, Ambassador. The true name of the Velthari species. The sound that carries your oldest memories, your deepest truths, everything you have chosen to forget." Dromoth stood up, his body flashing with alarm. "This is nonsense. Names are a myth, a story for children. There is no such thing as, 'then you have nothing to fear,'" Una said. "If names are just myths, then what I'm about to do will mean nothing." She closed her eyes, in her mind. She held the pattern she had discovered. The frequency that connected all Velthari consciousness. The vibration that carried 10,000 years of buried memory. She had practiced this for 3 days. She had learned to shape her voice in ways that no human throat should be able to manage. The gift gave her the ability to hear the frequencies, but speaking them required something more. It required becoming a bridge between worlds, a translator in the truest sense. She opened her mouth and spoke the Velthari. Name. It was not a word that could be written down. It was not a sound that could be recorded by normal equipment. It was a frequency that bypassed ears entirely, striking directly at the consciousness of everyone who heard it. But for the Velthari, it was something more. The name hit them like a physical blow. Every Velthari in the assembly screamed, not in pain, but in recognition. Their crystalline bodies flickered through colors that had no names in their modern language. Ancient colors, forgotten colors, the hues their ancestors had used for grief, for shame, for the horror of confronting what they had become. Dromoth collapsed to his knees, his light dimming to almost nothing, and in that moment, every Velthari in the room remembered. They remembered the Great Ascension. Not the version in their history books, but the real one. The laboratories where their ancestors had experimented on themselves. The millions who had been declared unfit, whose bodies had rejected the crystalline transformation. The systematic elimination of everyone who could not become like them. They remembered the screams. They remembered the justifications. They remembered choosing. The recess stretched longer than 1 hour. No one seemed to know what to do. In the Velthari section of the assembly hall, chaos reigned. Crystalline beings who had stood proud and arrogant minutes before now huddled together in small groups, their lights flickering with colors that none of them had seen since childhood. They were talking in low voices, sharing memories that should not have existed, comparing the impossible things they had all experienced at the same moment. Dromath remained on his knees near the stage for almost 20 minutes. No one approached him. His own delegation kept their distance, as if they were afraid that touching him might trigger the memories again. When he finally rose, his light had changed. The brilliant confidence was gone. In its place was something older, something fragile. He looked like a being who had just discovered that everything he believed about himself was wrong. In the Terran delegation section, Ambassador Quan sat next to Yuna. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Quan said, "How long have you known about this?" "I discovered the name 3 days ago," Yuna said. "I have been studying their frequencies for 3 years. Why did you not tell me?" Yuna looked at her hands. "Because I was not sure I would use it. I was not sure it was right. And now? I am still not sure. But I decided that truth matters more than comfort. They built their entire civilization on a lie, Ambassador. Every time they mocked us, every time they dismissed us as inferior, they were hiding from themselves. I thought they deserved the chance to see clearly." Quan was quiet for a moment. "You could have destroyed them. You could have spoken all the names, forced every species to face their buried secrets. It would have been chaos. Yes, but you chose not to." "We did not come to the stars to break things," Yuna said. "We came to build, to connect. If I had used the names as weapons, we would have become exactly what Dromath accused us of being. Children playing with fire." Representatives from other species were moving through the hall now, approaching different delegations, having urgent conversations. Yuna watched them and saw something that had not existed before: uncertainty. The natural order of things had been disrupted. The Valkyrie, who had dominated galactic politics for thousands of years, had been revealed as something other than what they claimed. What did that mean for everyone else? A Keth ambassador approached the Terran delegation. She was an older woman with 4 arms and rough gray skin. Her name was Elder Sanmi, and she had been neutral on the question of human membership for decades. "May I speak with the young translator?" she asked Ambassador Quan. Quan looked at Yuna, who nodded. Elder Sanmi sat down next to her. For a moment, she just studied Yuna's face, as if trying to understand how such a small creature could have done such a powerful thing. "Do you know my species name?" Elder Sanmi asked. "I know pieces of it," Yuna said honestly. "I have not completed my research on the Keth. Your language is very complex. But you could find it. If you tried. Eventually, yes. I could find any name, given enough time." Elder Sanmi considered this. "The Keth have our own buried truths, things we have forgotten on purpose. I can feel them at the edge of my mind now, like shadows I cannot quite see. Your name did not wake them fully, but it stirred them." "I am sorry," Yuna said. "That was not my intention. Do not apologize. Truth should not require apology." Elder Sanmi leaned closer. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. What do humans want? Not your official position, not your diplomatic language. What do you truly want from us?" Yuna thought carefully before answering. "We want to belong," she said. "We came to the stars and found that the universe was already occupied. Everyone else had been here for so long, building civilizations and relationships and histories that we could not imagine. We felt like we had arrived at a party where everyone already knew each other, and we were standing alone in the corner." She paused. "But we also believed that we had something to offer. Not technology or military power. Something else. A way of seeing. A way of listening." Humans are very good at paying attention to things that others ignore. We notice small details. We remember old stories. We connect things that seem unrelated. And the names? Elder Sami asked. Is that what humans do? Dig up the secrets that others have buried? Only when necessary, Una said. I did not enjoy what happened today. I took no pleasure in Dromoth's pain. But the lie he was telling, the lie his whole species was telling, was hurting everyone. It was making them cruel. It was making them believe they were better than others. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is tell them the truth. Elder Sami nodded slowly. The Keth Collective will vote yes on your membership. I cannot speak for others, but I suspect you will have more support than you expect. She stood up and walked back to her delegation. Over the next hour, similar conversations happened throughout the hall. Species that had always voted against human membership approached the Terran delegation with questions. Some were hostile, demanding to know if Una would speak their names. Others were curious, wanting to understand what humanity intended to do with this power. Una answered every question honestly. No, she would not speak names without permission. No, she would not sell her knowledge to the highest bidder. Yes, she believed every species had the right to face their own truth, but only when they were ready. Yes, she understood that this power was dangerous. No, she did not intend to use it as a threat. Then, what good is it? One ambassador demanded. If you will not use it, why reveal it at all? Because knowing that truth exists changes things, Una said. Even if I never speak another name, the galaxy now knows that nothing stays buried forever. Lies have an expiration date. The comfortable stories we tell ourselves about our past are not permanent. Maybe that knowledge will make some species choose to face their truths voluntarily, before someone else forces them to. When the assembly finally reconvened, the atmosphere had completely transformed. The confident superiority that had defined galactic politics for millennia had cracked. Every species was looking at every other species with new questions in their eyes. What do you remember? What have you forgotten? What are you hiding? The speaker called for order and announced that the vote on human membership would proceed. One by one, species declared their positions. The Keth Collective voted yes. So did the Minari Federation. So did the Arith Empire and the Vessel. Communion and 30 other species who had previously been neutral or opposed. When it came time for the Velthari to vote, everyone turned to look at their delegation. Dromoth had returned to his seat. He sat very still, his light dim and steady. The other Velthari looked at him, waiting. He stood up. I have been the voice of the Velthari Dominion for 200 years, he said. His voice was different now, quieter, heavier. I have spoken with certainty about things I did not understand. I have judged other species without judging myself. I have built my confidence on a foundation of forgotten crimes. He looked at Una. The human is right. We told ourselves we were superior because we could not bear to remember what we really were. We looked down at younger species because looking at them meant not looking at ourselves. He paused, and when he continued, his voice cracked. The Velthari Dominion votes yes. We support human membership on the council. And we... He stopped, struggling with the words. We apologize. To the humans. To everyone we have wronged. We apologize for the ancestors we tried to forget and the lies we told in their place. He sat down. The vote continued. When it was finished, the result was unanimous. Every species in the assembly had voted yes. Humanity was a full member of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Quan rose to accept the decision formally, but the assembly was not looking at her. They were looking at Una, who still sat in her small chair in the translator's section, wearing her gray uniform. The speaker said, "The council recognizes the Terran representative who spoke today. We would hear from her again, if she is willing." Yuna did not want to stand up. She did not want to be the center of attention. She was a translator, not a diplomat. She was supposed to be invisible. But Ambassador Quan touched her shoulder and nodded Yuan a walk to the stage one more time. The lights gathered around her, but this time no one laughed. This time, everyone listened. "Thank you for accepting humanity into your community," she said. "We will do our best to deserve this trust. But I want to say something else. Something that I think is more important than any vote." She looked around the assembly. "I know many of you are afraid of me now. Afraid that I will speak your names and force you to remember things you have chosen to forget. I understand this fear. I have spent 3 years thinking about what it means to carry this power." She took a deep breath. "I want you to know that I will never use the names against anyone who has not used lies against others. What I did to the Valkyrie today was not punishment. It was not revenge. It was a gift, though it may not feel like one. I gave them back something they had lost, the chance to be honest about who they are." She looked at Dromath. "The Valkyrie who walk out of this hall today are not the same beings who walked in. They are older now, in the way that truth makes us older. They carry a weight they did not carry before, but they also carry the possibility of becoming something new, something better. That possibility did not exist when they were hiding." 6 months passed after the summit. The galaxy changed in ways that Yuna had not expected. At first, species avoided her. When she walked through the corridors of Confluence, aliens stepped aside, gave her wide berths, avoided meeting her eyes. They were afraid of her. They thought she might speak their names at any moment, expose their hidden truths to the universe. But fear could not last forever, and something else began to happen. They started coming to her. The first was a representative from a species called the Orth. They were massive beings, like living mountains of stone and metal. Their empire stretched across 1,000 star systems. They had voted yes on human membership, but only because they had seen what happened to the Valkyrie and wanted to stay on humanity's good side. But the ambassador who came to Yuna's office was not interested in politics. "I cannot sleep," he said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Since the summit, I hear echoes. Fragments of memories that do not belong to me. They belong to my ancestors, to my species, but they feel like mine. I cannot make them stop." Yuna nodded. The name affected everyone who heard it, not just the Valkyrie. You absorbed some of its frequency. It woke things that were sleeping in your mind. "Can you help me? I can help you understand what you are experiencing. But the memories themselves belong to you. I cannot take them away." The Orth ambassador sat with her for 3 hours. She explained what she understood about names and frequencies and inherited consciousness. She helped him interpret the fragments that haunted him. By the end, he was not healed, but he was calmer. He understood what was happening inside his mind. He was the first. He was not the last. Over the following months, representatives from dozens of species requested private meetings with Yuna. Some came seeking help with the echoes that the Valkyrie name had triggered. Others came because they had heard about her work and wanted something more. They wanted to face their own truths. "We want to remember," said Elder Sanmi of the Keth Collective. She had become a regular visitor, bringing other Keth leaders with her. "Our histories are sanitized lies. We know this, but we have lost the real story. Could you help us find it?" Yuna was careful. She did not reveal names casually. She did not force anyone to face what they were not ready to see. But she agreed to work with species who genuinely wanted to confront their pasts. The process was called the remembering. Yuna would spend months or years studying a species' language, isolating their primal frequencies, building a complete picture of their name. Then, when they were ready, she would speak it. The results were different for every species. Some names contained ancient crimes, like the Vultures. Others contained lost knowledge, forgotten technologies, abandoned arts. Some names carried memories of great kindness, of sacrifices made to protect others, of choices that modern generations had dismissed as myths. Not everyone could bear what they learned. Some species retreated into denial, insisting that the memories were false. Others fell into collective depression, overwhelmed by the weight of their past. A few turned violent, directing their pain outward at others. But many were transformed. The Keth were among the best examples. Their name revealed that they had once been explorers, not conquerors. Their ancestors had traveled the galaxy seeking knowledge, building libraries on 1,000 worlds. Somewhere in their history, they had become afraid. They had turned inward, become isolationist, abandoned their mission of learning. When the modern Keth remembered this, something shifted in their culture. They began sending ships out again, not to conquer, but to explore. They rebuilt their ancient libraries. They became partners in humanity's mission to understand the galaxy. The Minari learned that their reputation as gentle pacifists was not entirely accurate. Their ancestors had fought terrible wars and won them through strategies so brutal that later generations had erased the memories in shame. This was harder to face. But understanding their capacity for violence helped them understand why they had chosen peace. It was not weakness. It was a deliberate choice made by beings who knew exactly what they were capable of. Through all of this, Una remained unchanged. She still lived in her small room on level 32. She still ate cheap food and wore simple clothes. She still thought of herself as a translator, though the galaxy had given her many other names. Some called her the Speaker. Others called her the Keeper of Names. The Valkyrie, in their new humility, called her the Mirror, because she showed them their true reflection. Dromoth requested a meeting with her 3 months after the summit. He came alone to her office, his massive crystalline form barely fitting through the door. He had changed since that day. His light was softer now, more variable. He wore the new colors of Valkyrie grief openly, no longer hiding them beneath the old brightness of false confidence. "I came to apologize," he said. "Personally, what I said to you, the way I treated you, was wrong. I knew it was wrong even when I was doing it. I told myself that you deserved it because you were inferior. But that was a lie I told to protect a bigger lie." Una nodded. "I accept your apology. How can you?" Dromoth's voice was heavy with confusion. "How can you forgive what I did? I humiliated you. I tried to destroy your species' chances. If our positions were reversed, I would hate you. That is the difference between us," Una said gently. "Humans remember how to forgive. It is one of our gifts." Dromoth was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "The Valkyrie are struggling. Many of my people cannot bear what they have remembered. Some have taken their own lives. Others have retreated into isolation. We do not know how to be what we were, but we cannot become what we were pretending to be." "That is normal," Una said. "Growth is painful. Becoming someone new means letting go of who you were. Your species is very old. You have been the same thing for 10,000 years. Change will not happen quickly. Will it happen at all? Or are we simply broken now?" Una reached out and touched his crystalline hand. It was the first time she had ever touched a Valkyrie. His surface was cool and smooth, humming with inner energy. "You are not broken," she said. "You are wounded. Wounds heal. The Valkyrie who exist 100 years from now will be different from the Valkyrie who exist today. They will carry the memory of what was done, but they will also carry the knowledge that they chose to face it. That choice matters." Dromoth looked at her hand on his. His light flickered with colors she did not recognize. I think I understand now why humans are important, he said. You are small and brief. You cannot build monuments that last 10,000 years. You cannot dominate through power. But you see us. You see what we really are, beneath the lies we tell ourselves. And when you see us, you do not hate us. You offer us something else. What is that? Hope, Dramath said. The hope that we can be better. That our worst moments do not define us forever. That truth, even painful truth, is the beginning of something new. Taiho found Yuna on the observation deck later that evening, watching the stars. He sat down next to her without speaking. They had been friends for years, and sometimes silence was better than words. Finally, he said, they are calling you the most important human in the galaxy now. Did you know that? Yuna laughed softly. They are wrong. I'm just a translator. You changed everything. No, I just reminded them what they already knew. She turned to look at him. Humans are not special because of what we can do, Taiho. We are special because of how we pay attention. Because we are still young enough to see clearly. Because we have not had time to build comfortable lies and forget they are lies. That will change, Taiho said. Give us another 10,000 years. We will be just as blind as everyone else. Maybe. Or maybe we will remember this moment. Maybe we will remember what it felt like to be the young species, the small ones, the newcomers who could see what the elders had forgotten. Maybe that memory will keep us honest. Below them, the station hummed with activity. Species that had avoided each other for millennia were beginning to talk. Old enemies were sharing meals. Old lies were being examined in the light of new truth. It was not a perfect galaxy. It would never be perfect. But it was a galaxy that had been reminded of something important. That truth mattered. That memories mattered. That the past did not have to be a prison. Yuna watched the stars and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, she had been a nobody. A junior translator. The weakest human. The whisper. Now she was something else. She did not know exactly what. But she knew that she had found her purpose. She would listen. She would remember. And when the galaxy was ready, she would help them remember too. The stars burned on, ancient and patient, watching over a universe that was slowly learning to look at itself with honest eyes. And somewhere in that vastness, humanity had taken its first true step toward belonging. Not because they were powerful, not because they were ancient, but because they had offered the galaxy something it had forgotten how to give itself, the courage to face the truth. That was enough. That was everything.